Hello, this is Pretty Guardian, and today we're talking about the game Exos Heroes. Exos Heroes is a free-to-play JRPG style game that I found in the Google Play Store. This one is made by a Korean company called Line Games. They have a history of making different RPGs and mobile games. I think that this is one of their more in-depth ones, but it's definitely not their first rodeo. When I first saw the game, I really appreciated the aesthetic that they were going for. I just thought it was really bright, colorful fantasy, and I was excited to jump on in. The game has a very storybook aesthetic to it, which they heavily leaned into. So it has an overworld map where your characters are designed kind of like pop-ups in a pop-up storybook would be, like little cutout characters that kind of move around the screen. I think it's super cute. Everything kind of in the game really coordinates well with that art style. So the execution of it is just kind of one cohesive story, and I think it's lovely the way that it was done. That being said, let's jump in and talk about the criteria that we use to judge these games. So for music, I'm giving it a 4 out of 5. I really liked the opening theme song. I think the battle music is really upbeat. There are just kind of a few tracks throughout the game that I think are really well done. That aside, what I think also really ties in well with this game is that they chose tracks that were appropriate for it. Everything has a very Venetian, romanticized, medieval sort of feel to it, which really goes well with the art style and just the general presentation of the game. The reason I'm subtracting 1 star is because I don't necessarily think that there was a grander vision for the soundtrack the way that you would find in something like a Final Fantasy game. Which isn't to say it was bad, it was really good, but I can think of a few games. One of them we'll be reviewing later on in this series where I would actually give it a 5 out of 5, and this doesn't quite hit that mark for me. For gameplay, we're gonna give it a 4 out of 5. I really enjoy it. So you have kind of levels basically where you get a bit of story and then you go into a typical turn-based JRPG sort of fight, kind of similar to what we've seen in a lot of these gacha games. The mechanics of it aren't super involved. Stylistically, it's just really pretty to look at, which I enjoy. I think the story is good, and there's a lot of little features in the game as far as being able to recycle your characters, and there's little towns that you can go into, and you have an airship, and there's just a lot of little components to this that add up to something really cool. I haven't done any PvP in the game yet, so I don't know how it does PvP. I don't know if they have guilds. I don't know about the rest of it. And to that end, I'll say that maybe it's a little bit slow in getting you to those points because I have put what feels like a pretty good amount of time into the game so far, and I can see that there's a lot of stuff that I still haven't unlocked yet. So I don't know if that's a pacing issue or if, I don't know, that could be seen as a bonus because the more you progress, the more there is for you to learn about and to do and to partake in when it comes to this game. I know a lot of players who do like games where they continually introduce new mechanics throughout the game. With the story, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. The way it basically starts out is your main character is a treasure hunter named Xeon, and he ends up going through these ruins and gets cursed by a black dragon. And I will say that it takes you on a grand adventure the way that you would expect in a full-blown RPG to do. And so that part is really lovely. The -1 star on there is because of the poor translation. There are just a lot of scenes where they say things that don't really make sense. And while there's not a ton of typos and stuff, there are a lot of moments where they'll use a plural where it should have been a singular, or kind of different things like that. And if it was just 1 or 2 mistakes, it'd be whatever, anybody can do that. But there's so many of them that it does actually kind of become distracting at a certain point. The game does have voice acting, which I think is wonderful, and I'm really giving them bonus points, I think, in the overall presentation of it. It enhances the general sound design of the game, it makes gameplay feel more fun, it makes the story feel more engaging. I liked the voice acting. I think it's a nice touch, but the poor translation, like I said, is a bit distracting still. For the art style, I'm also giving this game a 4 out of 5. Lots of 4 out of 5s here. I feel like this game really has the makings of a good game, and if you just kind of refine little bits and pieces of each area, you would have something that could really potentially be like a full game release, honestly. So with art style, we're giving it a 4 out of 5. I think the character designs are fantastic. We have a lot of them. They're varied, they are interesting, and I think there's a lot more diversity in this game than what I see in other games. You know what? I'm just gonna call it like I see it. One of the main characters in my party is Black. If you look back at Tales of Crestoria and a lot of these other games, they don't include people of color almost at all, and I think it's gross. I said what I said, you can fight me. But also just kind of every aspect of this game stylistically really fits each other. Whether we're looking at the UI or the overland map that's kind of designed like a storybook, or just the way that like combat and everything is presented, the character designs, it's all very beautiful and very engaging and interesting. For me, that lack of a 1 star is something where I feel like they could have just polished it a little bit better. So there were a couple things that I was really looking at. First off, the anti-aliasing in this game is not very good. I don't like seeing all those rough edges on the characters and the backgrounds. And then speaking of the backgrounds, a lot of them are just very low res. And if you're playing on your phone, it's okay. Not amazing, but it's okay. I think I'm able to overlook it a little bit and just say like, you know, it was a stylistic choice. That's an out of focus background, whatever. It's in a storybook. Our characters are on the forefront. I can kind of push it away. The issue does become more glaring if you're playing on like a tablet, or a lot of times I like to play games like this on my PC. And so for me, if they were able to make the backgrounds like have better definition to them and fix the anti-aliasing, I think it would do a lot for the art style of this game, and I would definitely give it a 5 out of 5. It is a very stylish and beautiful game though. The last thing that we look at with these games is the cash shop. And for that one, I'm giving it a 3 out of 5. When I was going through the cash shop, there was nothing that really excited me in there. It seemed to be kind of the standard fare of what we've seen in a lot of these other games, as far as like you can pay for pulls and they're like 20-ish bucks for most things in there. Nothing was like really egregiously priced. There wasn't like in Lord of Heroes where you had kind of that low monthly pack that you could buy into. This game does seem to want to push you in at a higher price point than that, and I'm not really sure that it's worth it. There are a lot of people that complain about this game being very pay to win. When I was scrolling through the reviews looking for one to share with you, a lot of people were saying like, you know, this game is a lot of fun to play through the story, but once you get past the story, you start to realize how pay to win it is. You have to keep spending money to get the next pull, and you need those new characters to stay competitive because the meta is like constantly changing to like push you back into the cash shop. I'd say that's pretty common with a lot of these types of games, and if all you play it for is the story, I definitely still think that there's something to be had out of this game. And I do think that they're pretty generous. I know that a lot of the premium currency that you acquire in-game is done through the main story, but I've also seen events where they give you free 11 pulls almost daily and just like lots of rewards that you can earn along the way. For me, coming back, I originally played this game back around when it first came out. I put it down for a little while until this review, and when I picked it back up, they were doing like a returning player reward, like log in daily and you can get this reward. And I also noticed that they added what they call bonds. It's kind of like in Lord of Heroes where you log in daily for a month and you can earn like highly ranking character. So it definitely feels like they give a lot to you, but if the meta changes, I don't know how much all of that's really worth. So I would say it's something to kind of play through for the story, and then after you've kind of hit that end of the story, just look at it and say, you know what, do I like this? Do I want to keep playing? Does this seem like something that's worth it to me? And then make that call for yourself. With reviews, just because I gave everything so many 4 out of 5 stars, I chose one that's 2 out of 5 stars. This is from the Google Play Store by a Mr. Joe. He said, great visuals and a lot of fun at first. Played over a year now, it gives me the same characters in recruiting that aren't very good. Same with crafting. Updates all the time, but just adds more things I can't seem to get. Money really didn't help much, and I refused to throw hundreds of dollars at any game that apparently doesn't value long-term players. It's simply to get you to like the game and throw money at an undeserving game developer. Now, I'm not going to comment on whether they're undeserving or not. The game does seem really nice to me, but let's let you decide. So to run through our scores again, we've got music, 4 out of 5, gameplay, 4 out of 5, story, 4 out of 5, art style, 4 out of 5, and cash shop, 3 out of 5. That brings us to a grand total of 76% for this game, or, a C+, which I think is very fitting. I think that this was a really delightful game, a great story, great visuals, a lot of fun, and kind of like I said, just in those different areas, if they were able to refine things a little bit in each of those bullet points, I feel like it would go a long way to just making this a really complete and solid game. So, to fill you in on what we're going to be checking out next week, we're going to be taking a look at the game Dragon Raja. This is something a little bit more in an MMORPG style rather than these typical gacha games that we've been playing so far. So I think it'll be a lot of fun. And I can't wait to see you next week. So until then, this is Pretty Guardian, logging out.